The mirror was fogged up, streaked with condensation from the gym's steamy showers. But it was that single glance, his eyes meeting mine in the glass, that stopped my heart. I'd known Ethan for years. My best friend. The guy who'd high-five me after a pickup game and split a pizza without a second thought. But this moment felt like a fault line splitting my world in two. Was it just me? Or did his gaze linger a fraction too long, heavy with something neither of us could name? We'd been coming to Gold's Gym in downtown Seattle every Thursday for months. A ritual born from his breakup with Sarah and my need to escape my own head. Ethan, 30, all broad shoulders and easy charm, had always been the straight guy every girl noticed. Hell, every guy noticed too. Me, Jamie, 28, wiry and perpetually overthinking. I was the one who'd been out since college, never hiding who I was, but never shouting it either. Ethan knew. Of course. He'd been cool about it, cracking jokes about my type while dodging any real talk about his own feelings. That was fine. I'd learned to keep my heart locked up tight around him. That night, though, something shifted. The gym was quieter than usual, the clank of weights and hum of treadmills fading as most folks cleared out. We'd pushed through a brutal leg day, Ethan egging me on with his usual grin. Come on, Jamie, don't let me outlift you again. I'd laughed, shoving him lightly, but my chest ached with the weight of things I'd never say. In the locker room, we stood side by side, wiping sweat from our faces, the air thick with steam and silence. I caught my reflection, messy dark hair, flushed cheeks, and then his. Those green eyes sharp and unreadable. Our gazes locked in the mirror, and for a moment, the world stopped. His lips parted, like he wanted to say something. But then he turned away, grabbing his towel like it was a lifeline. Yo, you good? He asked, voice rougher than usual. Yeah, I lied, my pulse hammering. You? He nodded, too quick, and headed for the showers. I stood there, staring at my own reflection, wondering what the hell just happened. Had I imagined it? That flicker of something. I'd spent years convincing myself Ethan was off limits, a straight line I'd never cross. But that look, it was like he'd seen me, really seen me, for the first time. Back at my apartment, I couldn't shake it. The way his eyes had held mine, the way his jaw tightened like he was fighting something. I paced my tiny living room, the Seattle skyline glittering outside my window, a city full of people who didn't know I was unraveling. Ethan and I had been inseparable since we met at a tech startup 3 years ago, bonding over bad coffee and worse deadlines. He was the guy who'd crash on my couch after a night out, who'd text me dumb memes at 2 a.m. But he was straight. Always had been. So why did that moment in the mirror feel like a confession? The next morning, I woke to a text from him, gym tonight. Gotta redeem myself after you smoked me on squats. Classic Ethan. Deflecting with humor. I stared at my phone, fingers hovering over the keyboard. I wanted to ask, what was that look? But instead, I typed, you're on, loser. I couldn't risk it. Not yet. At the gym that evening, the air felt charged, like the calm before a storm. Ethan was his usual self-cracking jokes, spotting me on the bench press, but there was a tension in his movements, a careful distance he hadn't kept before. I caught him watching me when he thought I wasn't looking, his eyes tracing the line of my shoulders as I racked the weights. My stomach flipped. This wasn't just me projecting, was it? Jamie, he said suddenly, as we sat on a bench, catching our breath. His voice was low, almost lost in the gym's background noise. You ever feel something you don't know how to deal with? I froze, water bottle halfway to my mouth. Like what? He shrugged, staring at the floor. Just stuff. Things you didn't expect. My heart pounded, but I played it cool. Yeah, man, life's messy like that. He looked up, his eyes searching mine, and I swear I saw it again, that same raw, unguarded look from the mirror. But before I could say anything, he stood, clapping me on the shoulder. Let's hit the showers. I'm starving. That night, I lay awake, replaying his words, his glances, the way his hand lingered on my shoulder. Ethan was my best friend, the one constant in my chaotic life. But that look in the mirror, it was a crack in the foundation of everything I thought I knew about him, about us. And I wasn't sure I could ignore it anymore. The gym became our battleground, a place where sweat and silence hid truths we weren't ready to face. Over the next week, Ethan and I kept up our routine. But every glance, every brush of his arm against mine, felt like a spark in a tinderbox. I was drowning in questions. Was he feeling it too? Or was I reading too much into a fleeting moment? Friday night, the gym was packed, the air thick with the smell of rubber mats and determination. Ethan was pushing harder than usual, loading plates onto the barbell like he was trying to outlift his own thoughts. I spotted him, my hands hovering under the bar, my eyes on his strained expression. You trying to impress someone? I teased, hoping to lighten the mood. He grunted, racking the bar. Maybe. His grin was forced, and he wouldn't meet my eyes. Afterward, in the locker room, the tension was suffocating. I kept my gaze on my gym bag, pretending to focus on folding my towel, but my skin prickled under his presence. He was quieter than usual, toweling off his hair, his movement slow, deliberate. I risked a glance and caught him staring not at me, but at the mirror, his reflection a mix of determination and doubt. Ethan, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. What's going on with you? He froze, towel draped over his shoulders. Nothing, man. Just tired. Bullshit. The word slipped out before I could stop it. His eyes snapped to mine, wide and unguarded. I stepped closer, my heart in my throat. You've been weird since last week. That look in the mirror, what was that? For a moment, I thought he'd bolt. But he didn't. He leaned against the lockers, his knuckles white as he gripped the towel. I don't know. Jamie, he said, his voice raw. I don't know what I'm feeling. My breath caught. Try me. He laughed, a bitter sound. You make it sound so easy. Like I can just figure it out. Maybe you can, I said, softer now. But you gotta be honest. With me. With yourself. He looked at me then. Really looked at me. And I felt exposed. Like he could see every hope I'd buried. I'm not like you, he said finally. I've always been with women. Always thought that's who I am. I nodded, my chest tight. And now? He shook his head, eyes dropping to the floor. Now I don't know shit. The confession hung between us, fragile and heavy. I wanted to reach out, to tell him it was okay to be confused. But fear held me back. What if I pushed too hard and lost him? Instead, I said, you don't have to know everything right now. Just don't shut me out. He nodded, a small, almost imperceptible motion, and we left it at that. But as we walked out into the chilly Seattle night, the space between us felt differentless, like a barrier, more like a bridge we were both afraid to cross. The next few days were a blur of texts and avoidance. Ethan sent me memes, same as always, but there was a hesitation in his messages, a careful neutrality that hadn't been there before. I threw myself into work, coding late into the night, trying to drown out the what-ifs. But every time my phone buzzed, my heart leapt, hoping it was him saying something real. Wednesday, he texted, Drinks after the gym. Need to talk. My stomach nodded. Talk could mean anything: closure, confession, or something in between. I agreed. And that night, we hit the gym with a strange, unspoken agreement to keep things light. We joked. We lifted. We pretended everything was normal. But I caught him watching me again, his eyes lingering on my hands as I adjusted the weights, on my lips as I laughed. At the bar afterward, a dive called the Rusty Anchor. We sat in a corner booth, beers sweating on the table. The jukebox played some old Springsteen song, and the dim light cast shadows across Ethan's face. He looked tired, older than his 30 years, like he was carrying something heavy. Jamie, he started, his fingers tracing the rim of his glass. I've been thinking about what you said, about being honest. I leaned forward, every nerve on edge. Yeah. He took a deep breath, his eyes flicking to mine. I've never questioned who I am. Not once. But lately, being around you, it's like I'm seeing myself differently. Like maybe I've been wrong about a lot of things. My heart stopped. Was this it? Was he saying what I thought he was? But before I could respond, he pushed on, his voice low and urgent. I don't know if I'm like you, but I know I feel something, and it scares the shit out of me. The bar faded away. The noise, the people, everything. It was just us, two guys in a booth, teetering on the edge of something terrifying and beautiful. I reached across the table, my hand stopping short of his. Ethan, I said, my voice steady despite the chaos inside. Whatever this is, we figure it out together. Okay. He looked at my hand, then at me, and for the first time, he didn't pull away. The Rusty Anchor's neon sign buzzed outside as Ethan's words echoed in my head. I feel something. I wanted to grab him, shake him, demand he explain. But the vulnerability in his eyes stopped me. This was Ethan, my best friend, the guy who'd never questioned his straightness until now. Until me. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of his confession settling like dust. I took a sip of my beer, the cold bitterness grounding me. So, I said, keeping my tone light, you gonna tell me what something means? Or do I have to guess? He chuckled, a nervous sound, and rubbed the back of his neck. Hell if I know. Jamie, it's like, you ever look at someone and realize they're more than you thought? Like you've been blind to it your whole life. My pulse quickened. Yeah, I know exactly what that's like. He met my gaze, and there it was again, that mirror moment, raw and unguarded. But this time, he didn't look away. I don't know what I'm doing, he admitted. I just know I don't want to lose you while I figure it out. You won't, I said, too quickly. My heart laid bare. I'm here, Ethan. Always have been. The rest of the night blurred into laughter and small talk, a fragile attempt to reclaim normalcy. But as we walked back to my apartment, the Seattle rain misting around us, I felt the shift. Ethan's shoulder brushed mine, and he didn't pull away. It was small, but it was everything. The next week was a tightrope walk. At the gym, Ethan was bolder, his hand lingering on my back as he spotted me. His smile softer, more intentional. I caught myself staring too, memorizing the way his jaw tensed when he lifted, the way his laugh lit up the room. But doubt gnawed at me. What if this was just a phase for him? A curiosity he'd shrug off, leaving me to pick up the pieces. Friday night, he invited me to his place for dinner. Ethan's apartment was a bachelor pad like chemist-matched furniture. A fridge full of beer and takeout containers, but it felt like home. He'd cooked, or tried to, a slightly burned lasagna that made us both laugh. As we ate, the conversation danced around the unspoken, sticking to safe topics like work and the Seahawks. but over dishes. As I scrubbed and he dried, he broke the silence. Jamie, can I ask you something? His voice was quiet, almost shy. I nodded, drying my hands. Anything. When did you know? Like, really know who you were? I leaned against the counter, the question catching me off guard. College, I said. I had this roommate, Nate. Total frat bro. But he kissed me at a party one night, and it was like a light switch flipped. I'd always known, deep down, but that made it real. Ethan's eyes darkened, not with jealousy, but with something heavier. Was it scary? Figuring it out. Terrifying, I admitted, but also freeing, like I could finally breathe. He nodded, staring at the dish in his hands. I keep thinking about that moment in the gym. The mirror. I saw you, and it was like, I don't know, like I was seeing myself too. My heart thudded. Ethan, you don't have to have it all figured out. It's okay to just feel. He set the dish down, stepping closer. What if I want to feel more? The air between us crackled. I could see the fear in his eyes, but also the want, the same one I'd buried for years. Before I could think, my hand reached out, brushing his arm. He didn't flinch. Instead, he closed the distance, his breath warm against my cheek. Jamie, he whispered, and then his lips were on mine, tentative at first, then desperate, like he'd been holding back for too long. I kissed him back, my hands finding his shoulders, his chest, grounding myself in the reality of it. Ethan, my straight best friend, was kissing me, and it felt like the world was rewriting itself. When we pulled apart, his forehead rested against mine, his breathing uneven. Holy shit, he muttered, a shaky laugh escaping him. Yeah, I said, grinning despite the chaos in my chest. Holy shit. We didn't talk much after that, just sat on his couch, shoulders touching, the TV playing some movie neither of us watched. But the silence wasn't heavy, Anna Marie, it was full of possibility. The next morning, reality hit. Ethan was quieter, his smiles tinged with uncertainty. At the gym, he kept his distance, focusing on his sets like they were a lifeline. I tried to act normal, but every glance felt like a test. Was he regretting it? Was I just a mistake? By Sunday, I couldn't take it anymore. I cornered him after our workout, the locker room empty except for us. Ethan, talk to me. Are we okay? He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I don't know. Jamie. That kiss, it was real. But I'm freaking out. What if I'm not ready for this? What if I hurt you? His honesty gutted me, but it also gave me hope. You won't hurt me, I said, stepping closer. Not if we're honest. Just don't run from this. From us. He looked at me, his eyes soft and scared. I'm trying. Jamie, I swear I'm trying. Ethan's promise to try was a lifeline, but it didn't stop the doubt creeping into my bones. Every gym session, every text, every shared glance felt like a gamble. Would he lean in or pull back? I was falling for him, hard, and the fear of losing him as a friend, let alone something more, kept me up at night. Monday, we hit the gym like nothing had changed, but everything had. Ethan's laugh was tighter, his movements careful, like he was afraid of brushing against me. I pushed through my sets, my mind racing. That kiss had been electric. But what if it was a one-time thing? What if he was just testing the waters, only to decide he couldn't swim? Afterward, in the locker room, I caught him staring at the mirror again, his reflection a storm of emotions. You okay? I asked, keeping my voice steady. He nodded, but his eyes betrayed him. Just thinking. A lot. About us. I pressed, my heart pounding. He turned, his gaze locking onto mine. Yeah. About how I don't want to screw this up. His words were a bomb, but they didn't erase the tension. We grabbed coffee at a diner down the street. The kind of place with sticky tables and waitresses who called you Han. Sitting across from him, I watched his hands fidget with a sugar packet. His usual confidence replaced by something raw. Jamie, he said, his voice low. I've never felt like this. Not with Sarah. Not with anyone. But I'm scared I'm gonna mess it up. I don't even know what this is yet. I reached across the table, my hand covering his. Then we figure it out. Together. No pressure. He squeezed my hand, a small smile breaking through. You make it sound so simple. It's not, I admitted. But it's worth it. The next few days were a dance of hope and hesitation. Ethan started opening up, sharing bits of himself he'd kept hidden. He told me about growing up in a small town outside Seattle, where different wasn't a word people embraced. His dad, a mechanic with a temper, had drilled into him what it meant to be a man tough. Straight. Uncomplicated. I never questioned it. Ethan said one night over beers at my place. Until you. His words hit me like a punch. I'd spent years building walls around my heart, knowing guys like Ethan were out of reach. But here he was, tearing those walls down, brick by brick. Friday, he suggested we skip the gym and hike instead. We drove to Mount Rainier, the air crisp and the trails alive with the scent of pine. As we climbed, Ethan seemed lighter, his laughter echoing through the trees. At the summit, we sat on a rocky outcrop, the mountain stretching out below us. He turned to me, his face flushed from the climb. This feels right, he said. Being here. With you. I grinned, my chest tight with hope. Yeah, it does. That night, back at his place, we kissed again. This time, it wasn't desperate, it was slow, deliberate, like we were mapping out new territory. His hands found my waist, pulling me closer, and I felt the world fall away. But when we pulled back, his eyes were clouded. Jamie, I need time, he said. This is a lot. I nodded, swallowing my disappointment. Take all the time you need. But time didn't make it easier. At work, Ethan was distant, throwing himself into meetings while I coded in silence, stealing glances at him across the office. My best friend, Mia, noticed. Over lunch, she leaned in, her dark eyes sharp. You're in deep, aren't you? I sighed, pushing my sandwich around my plate. Is it that obvious? Only to someone who knows you, she said. What's going on with you and Ethan? I told her everything, the mirror, the kiss, the hike. She listened, her face softening. He's figuring himself out. Jamie, that's not easy, especially for a guy like him. Just be careful. Okay. Protect your heart. Her words stuck with me. That night, at the gym, I watched Ethan lift, his focus intense, like he was trying to outrun his own thoughts. After, as we changed, I couldn't hold back. Ethan, are you pulling away? He froze, shirt halfway on. I'm not. I'm just scared. Okay. This isn't just about us. It's my whole life, me family, my friends. If I'm not who I thought I was, what does that mean? I stepped closer, my voice soft. It means you're human, and you're allowed to change. He looked at me, his eyes bright with unshed tears. I don't want to hurt you, Jamie, but I don't know if I can be what you need. You already are. I said, my voice breaking. Just be you. That's enough. Ethan's fear was a wall between us, but his honesty kept me tethered to hope. I wanted to believe he could embrace Thesis, but the weight of his past, his family, his identity, was a shadow I couldn't ignore. Every gym session now felt like a test. A silent question: would he stay? Or would he run? The following week, Ethan seemed determined to prove he wasn't running. He texted me daily. Small gestures that felt hugely a link to a song he thought I'd like. A selfie from his morning run. His grin wide and unguarded. At the gym, he was back to his old self, teasing me about my form, his hand brushing mine as he passed me a dumbbell. But I saw the strain in his eyes. The way he'd glance at the door like he was half expecting his old life to barge in and reclaim him. Thursday night, after a grueling workout, we ended up at my place, sprawled on the couch with takeout. The TV was on, but neither of us was watching. Ethan's knee pressed against mine, a small but deliberate touch. "Jamie," he said, his voice low. "I talked to my sister today. About us." My heart stopped. "What did you say?" He shrugged, picking at his food. "Not everything. Just that I'm figuring things out. With you." And I braced myself. She was cool about it. Said she always thought we were too close to be just friends. He laughed, but it was shaky. Guess I'm not as good at hiding things as I thought. I reached for his hand, my fingers lacing through his. "You don't have to hide. Not with me." He looked at our joined hands, his thumb brushing over my knuckles. "I know, but it's not just you. My dad, he's old school. If he finds out I'm even thinking about this, he'll lose it." "Then we take it slow," I said, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. "You don't have to tell him until you're ready." He nodded, but the fear didn't leave his eyes. That night, he stayed over, sleeping on the couch while I lay awake in my room, wondering how long he could straddle two worlds. The next morning, Ethan was quieter, his smiles forced. At work, he threw himself into a new project, barely meeting my eyes across the office. I tried to focus, but my mind kept drifting to him, to the way his lips felt, the way his voice cracked when he said he was scared. Mia caught me staring and pulled me aside. "You okay?" she asked. "Not really," I admitted. "He's trying, but it's like he's fighting himself." She sighed, her hand on my shoulder. "Give him time, Jamie. But don't lose yourself waiting." Her words echoed as I headed to the gym that night. Ethan was already there, warming up on the treadmill. He waved me over, his grin back in place, but I could see the cracks. We lifted in silence, the clank of weights filling the space where words should have been. In the locker room, I couldn't take it anymore. "Ethan, are you in this? Really?" He stopped, towel around his neck, his eyes searching mine. "I want to be. God, Jamie, I want to be. But every time I think about what this means me family, my life fights like I can't breathe." "Then let me help you," I said, stepping closer. "You don't have to do this alone." He reached out, his hand cupping my cheek. And for a moment, I thought he'd kiss me again. But he pulled back, his voice barely a whisper. "I need to figure this out on my own. Just give me a little space." "Okay." Space. The word was a knife. I nodded, my throat tight, and watched him walk away, his shoulders hunched like he was carrying the world. The next few days were torture. Ethan texted less, his messages polite but distant. At the gym, he showed up late, left early, avoiding the locker room altogether. I threw myself into my own routine, lifting heavier, running faster, trying to outrun the ache in my chest. Mia noticed. Of course. Over coffee. She didn't sugarcoat it. He's pulling away. Jamie, you need to protect yourself. I know, I said. But the truth was, I didn't want to. I wanted to believe in the Ethan who'd kissed me, who'd looked at me like I was his answer. Sunday. He texted, "Can we talk?" My place. Tonight. My heart leapt, but fear tempered it. Was this a step forward or the end? At his apartment. He looked wrecked, dark circles under his eyes. His hair a mess. I've been thinking, he said, pacing. About you. About us. I want this. Jamie. I want you. But I'm terrified I'll screw it up. Then don't. I said, my voice breaking. Just let me in. He stopped, his eyes locking onto mine. I'm trying. I swear. I'm trying. Ethan's apartment felt like a pressure cooker, his pacing a metronome to my racing heart. His words, "I want you," were everything I dreamed of. But the fear in his eyes told me this wasn't a victory. It was a beginning, fragile and fraught, and I wasn't sure either of us was ready for what came next. We sat on his couch, the space between us charged with unspoken questions. What's scaring you the most? I asked, my voice soft but firm. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. Everything. My dad. My friends. The way people will look at me. But mostly, what if I'm not enough for you? What if I can't be what you need? I leaned forward, my hands itching to reach for him. Ethan, I don't need you to be anything but you. The rest we figure out together. He looked at me, his green eyes raw with emotion. You make it sound so easy. It's not, I said, echoing my own words from days ago. But it's worth it. That night, we didn't kiss. Instead, we talked for hours. About his fears, my hopes, the lives we'd built and the ones we wanted. He told me about his dad's expectations, the way he'd grown up thinking love had to fit a certain mold. I shared my own struggles, the years of hiding in high school, the freedom of coming out, the loneliness that lingered even after. By the time we fell silent, the city outside was quiet, the dawn creeping through his windows. The next week, Ethan tried harder. He showed up at the gym with a new energy, his smiles less guarded, his touches more deliberate. One night, as we racked the weights, he grabbed my hand, pulling me close. I'm in this. Jamie, he whispered, his breath warm against my ear. I'm not running. I grinned, my heart soaring. Good. 'Cause I'm not letting you. But life doesn't let you stay in those moments. Friday, Ethan got a call from his dad. I was at his place, sprawled on the couch, when his phone rang. His face tightened as he listened. His responses clipped. When he hung up, he looked like he'd been punched. He wants me to come home this weekend, he said. Family barbecue. Everyone's gonna be there. I sat up, my stomach nodding. You gonna tell him? About us? He shook his head, his jaw tight. Not yet. I can't. He won't get it. I nodded, hiding my disappointment. Okay. Just don't shut me out. The weekend without Ethan was agony. I went to the gym alone, the weights heavier without his banter. Mia dragged me out for drinks, trying to distract me, but my mind was on him, imagining him surrounded by family, pretending to be the Ethan they knew. When he texted Sunday night back, "Can you come over?" I was out the door before I could think. He looked exhausted, his eyes red-rimmed. It was a shit show, he said, pacing his living room. My dad kept talking about settling down, finding a good girl. I wanted to tell him, Jamie, I wanted to say I'm with you. But I froze. I stepped closer, my hand on his arm. It's okay. You'll tell him when you're ready. He shook his head, his voice breaking. What if I'm never ready? What if I'm too scared to ever be me? His words hit like a freight train. I pulled him into a hug, his body tense against mine. You're already you, I whispered. And I'm not going anywhere. The next few days, Ethan leaned on me more. He started opening up at the gym, joking about our sets, his hand lingering on my shoulder. But I could feel the storm brewing. His dad called again, insisting he visit for Thanksgiving. Ethan agreed, but the dread in his eyes was unmistakable. Wednesday, before he left, we went for a run along the waterfront, the Seattle skyline glinting under a gray sky. As we stopped to catch our breath, he turned to me, his face serious. Jamie, if this goes bad, if my family doesn't accept this, will you still be here? I grabbed his hand, squeezing it tight. Always. He kissed me then, right there on the trail, the world fading away. It was fierce, desperate, like he was claiming something he'd been afraid to want. When we pulled back, he smiled, a real smile, and for the first time, I believed we could make it. But as he drove off to his parents' house the next day, doubt crept in. I spent Thanksgiving with Mia, her family's warmth a stark contrast to the silence of my phone. Ethan texted once, a brief miss you, but nothing more. By Friday, I was a wreck, imagining the worst. When he finally called, his voice was strained. Jamie, he said, we need to talk. Ethan's voice on the phone was a gut punch, thin and frayed, like he'd been unraveling for days. Can you come over? He asked, and I was already grabbing my keys, the Seattle rain blurring my windshield as I drove. I braced myself for the worst rejection. Regret. The end of us, but hope flickered, stubborn and unyielding. His apartment was dark when I arrived, save for a single lamp casting shadows across his face. He looked hollow, his broad shoulders slumped, his eyes avoiding mine. Thanksgiving was a disaster, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I told them. About us. My heart stopped. What happened? He sank onto the couch, his hands clenched. My dad, he didn't yell. That would have been easier. He just looked at me like I was a stranger, said I was confused, that I needed to fix this. I sat beside him, my hand hovering over his before settling on his knee. And your mom? Your sister? Mom didn't say much. She just cried. My sister tried to defend me, but Dad shut her down. It was like I broke something that can't be fixed. I squeezed his knee, my throat tight. You didn't break anything, Ethan. You were honest. That's not something to be ashamed of. He looked at me then, his eyes wet and searching. I wanted to be brave. Jamie. For you. But I felt so small out there. You are brave, I said, my voice fierce. You told the truth. That's more than most people can say. He leaned into me, his head resting against my shoulder, and I held him, the weight of his pain heavy against my chest. We stayed like that for a long time, the silence broken only by the soft patter of rain outside. The next week, Ethan was a ghost of himself. At the gym, he went through the motions, his usual fire gone. I tried to keep things light, cracking jokes, but his smiles were hollow. At work, he buried himself in code, avoiding our usual banter. I gave him space, but it killed me to see him retreat. Friday, Mia pulled me aside at the office. He's struggling. Jamie, she said, her eyes soft but firm. You can't carry this for him. I know, I said, but the truth was, I wanted to. I wanted to fix it, to make his family see him the way I did. That night, at the gym, Ethan surprised me. As we changed in the locker room, he grabbed my hand, pulling me close. "I'm not giving up," he said, his voice low but steady. "I don't know how to do this, but I'm not letting you go." I grinned, relief flooding me. Good, 'cause I'm pretty hard to get rid of. We started rebuilding. Slowly, Ethan opened up about his family, the weight of their rejection, but also his determination to live his truth. We spent more time outside the gym, movie nights, late-night drives, moments where he'd reach for my hand and not let go. Each touch, each smile, felt like a victory. But the shadow of his family lingered. One night, as we lay on my couch, his head on my chest, he got a text from his dad. I felt him tense, his breath hitching as he read it. "He wants to meet," he said, his voice flat. "Just me and him. Tomorrow." I sat up, my heart racing. "You gonna go?" He nodded, his jaw tight. "I have to. I need to know if there's any chance he'll come around." The next day, I waited, my phone burning a hole in my pocket. Mia kept me company, trying to distract me with bad puns. But my mind was with Ethan. When he finally called, his voice was heavy. "It didn't go well," he said. "I'm choosing this over family. Gave me an ultimatum: get my head straight, or I'm out." I gripped the phone, anger flaring. "That's not fair, Ethan. He can't make you choose." "I know," he said, his voice breaking. "But it feels like I'm losing everything." "You're not," I said fiercely. "You've got me. You've got your sister. You've got a life here." He was quiet for a long moment. "Can I come over?" When he arrived, he looked shattered, but there was a fire in his eyes I hadn't seen before. "I'm done trying to be what he wants," he said, his voice steady. "I want Thysis. I choose you, Jamie." I pulled him into a kiss, fierce and full of everything I'd held back. He kissed me back, his hands framing my face. And for the first time, I felt like we were on solid ground. Ethan's choice was a spark, but sparks don't always mean fire. We were together now, really together. But the weight of his family's rejection clung to him like damp clothes after a rain. I wanted to believe we could outrun it, that our love could be enough. But life has a way of testing you when you least expect it. We fell into a rhythm, a new kind of normal. Gym nights were still our anchor, but now they ended with his hand in mine as we left. No longer hiding. At my place, we'd cook dinner, laughing over burn attempts at stir-fry, or binge shows, his arm around me like it was the most natural thing in the world. But I saw the moments he'd drift, his eyes distant, like he was replaying his dad's words. One night, as we lay in bed, the city humming outside, he turned to me, his voice soft. "Jamie, do you ever think about the future? Like us, years from now?" I propped myself up, my heart racing. "Yeah, I see us. Together. Maybe a place with a view. A dog. The whole deal." He smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. "I want that. But sometimes I wonder if I'm strong enough to get there." I cupped his face, my thumb brushing his cheek. "You are. And I'll be right here. Every step." His sister, Emily, became our unexpected ally. She called him weekly, her voice a lifeline, reminding him he wasn't alone. One Saturday, she drove up from Tacoma, insisting on meeting me. Over coffee, she grinned, her eyes so like Ethan's. "You're good for him," she said. "He's happier with you than I've ever seen him." I blushed, glancing at Ethan, who was pretending not to listen. "He's good for me too," But the world wasn't always kind. At the gym, we started getting looks subtle at first, then bolder. A guy we'd seen around, some meathead named Derek, made a snide comment one night as we changed. "Didn't peg you for that type, Ethan," he said, his smirk cutting. Ethan's jaw tightened, but he didn't flinch. "Didn't peg you for a prick, Derek," he shot back, his hand finding mine. I squeezed it, pride swelling in my chest. Still, the comments stung, and I saw their toll. Ethan started checking his phone less, avoiding his dad's messages. One night, he showed me a text from his mom. "We just need time. Ethan, we love you." It was small, but it was hope. Spring came, and with it, a chance to breathe. We took a trip to the Oregon coast, just the two of us, renting a cabin by the sea. The first night, as waves crashed outside, Ethan pulled me close, his lips soft against mine. "I love you, Jamie," he said, the words a quiet thunder. I froze, my heart soaring. "I love you too." Those words became our strength. Back in Seattle, Ethan started therapy, working through the tangle of his family's expectations and his own identity. His dad didn't come around, but his mom called, her voice tentative but warm. Emily visited more, bringing stories of their childhood that made Ethan laugh, his eyes bright with the man he was becoming. One evening, months later, we stood in the gym locker room, the same mirror reflecting us. Ethan caught my eye in the glass, his smile soft and sure. "This is where it started," he said, his hand brushing mine. "Yeah," I said, grinning. One look changed everything. He laughed, pulling me into a kiss. Right there in the open. No fear. No shame. Life wasn't perfect. There were still hard days. Still fights and doubts. But we faced them together. Ethan wasn't just my straight friend anymore, was my partner. My home. And as we walked out of the gym that night, hand in hand, I knew we'd built something real. Something worth fighting for. The mirror had shown us the truth. Not just of who we were, but of who we could be. And that truth, hard-won and beautiful, was enough.